One of the hardest things we all have to cope with is bereavement. Losing a parent or someone close can be devastating. But imagine losing someone who's been with you since before you were born. Well, here in the Northwest, a support group's being set up to help people who've lost a twin. Twins are the miracles of life. In the case of identical twins, one egg creating not just two people, but a lifelong bond. Joan Woodward, a psychotherapist, lost her twin Pam when she was just 3 years old. Despite her being so young, Joan believes her death had a lasting effect.
There's no doubt whatsoever that what it produced was extreme levels of anxiety, and that I was very lonely, and that in a way I think it's quite well known among other lone twins who talk about it, because after all I have met very many lone twins now. This sense that something's missing, that something's not there that should be there, they're seeking a kind of closeness, and I think one of the hardest bits is you want to find that closeness again, but it never is available.
In the 1980s, Joan wrote a book on the subject and interviewed more than 200 lone twins. Some had lost their twin in adulthood, some in childhood, and others at birth.
I think other people were surprised to find how much twins who lost their twin at birth were so deeply affected. And of course that's because there's a lot of evidence to show that the thing that mattered to those twins was the parental response to the loss. And you know, for mothers to have this agonizing experience of giving birth to one child who's alive and at the same time giving birth to a child who's dead is a very traumatic experience, a very painful one. How do you adore one and feel happy and yet grieve and feel terribly sad about the other?
Having interviewed so many lone twins, Joan then decided to set up a support network, and they now meet a couple of times a year.
It's not a therapy group, it's what the twins can offer each other in understanding and listening to each other.
Since the 1980s, the group has grown. Its website is run by Nancy Power, who lost her twin Jane to suicide when they were both 20.
So I just didn't know how to cope. I had no idea how to. It was not something I was expecting to have to deal with. You know, I expected to have to deal with my parents dying or other family members, but not my twin sister at all. I just never thought she'd actually do it. Even though we weren't identical, I still felt that we were two halves of one whole. It's like I was quite the shy one and she was the outgoing one. I was the more studious one. She was the one that went out fagging it behind the bike shed and staying out late and just being more vivacious and more outgoing. And I was the shy, retiring sort of, oh, I'll just get on with my little hobbies thing. We each have abilities that we give to the other, and I would help her out with more academic things, and then she might, you know, because of her, I might have tried to be a bit more outgoing, and I needed her to help me with that, and she needed me to help her with other things. So as soon as that goes and it's not there anymore, it's like I just felt so lost. I just didn't know. That's the only way to describe it. I just felt completely lost. I didn't know how to sort of function in a way. It's just, it is like, you know, losing half of yourself. It really is.
Nancy joined the Lone Twin Network 8 years ago and has drawn huge strength from the support of others.
I suddenly realised that, oh right, I'm not a freak, I'm not mad for thinking, because the stuff that goes through your head in groups, I was just like, right, I'm just going to say what's in my head because it's in my head and that's the way of thinking. And so I say it, and then I've got nods going around the group of people like, oh yeah, I've thought that, and I'm like, oh right, I'm not completely crazy then. And that's the good thing about it, is that you can all be crazy together. This is the memorial cloth that I have taken over from one of the ladies that started it, and it has members' names on it with their twin's name by the side of it as just a memorial really, and something a bit more permanent of their twin. it's good for people that lost their twin at birth and don't have a grave to visit or any other kind of memories or any photographs or anything. At least there's something somewhere that is giving their twin a place, really, in the world.
And perhaps that's the most difficult aspect for outsiders to understand, the grief of those who lost their twin at birth. People like Jill Ingham, whose twin Julie was stillborn. She didn't realise the effect of this until she was in her 20s.
The best word to describe it was intense insecurity, feeling very frightened about what was going to happen next. I remember saying, "Oh, I don't know what's going to happen." People say, "What do you mean, what's going to happen?" Great insecurity, and also a sense of looking for something. Because I studied languages, I spent quite a lot of time in foreign cities and studying and working, but I'd find myself wandering around looking for something, but never, a feeling of unease and not being very relaxed. That's how it manifested in me.
Like many stillborn children, Jill's twin was buried in the grave of an unrelated adult who died at the same time. The Lone Twin Network was able to help Jill locate her unmarked grave.
I just went along and had a nice plaque made with today the date on. I think it was 2003, and a little message to her. And it just felt better, and put some flowers, and my parents were very surprised that I'd managed to do all this through Lone Twin Networks. They wouldn't have had a clue how to do it, and we all felt better for it.
Having found peace through the Lone Twin Network, Jill wants to now help others by setting up a regional branch here in the Northwest.
We've got our first meeting on the 29th of October. Details can be found on the Lone Twin Network website. So we'll have that. It'll just be for an afternoon with tea and cakes, that sort of thing. And it will be, we will discuss at the end of the session what people want to do, whether they think twice a year, or it'll be what people want it to be.
Twins don't just share a birthday, they share a symbiosis, a special bond that's impossible to replicate. But with the help of others in the same situation, lone twins can find a way through their grief and in turn be of help to others.
We did have a very good couple of sessions in which lone twins went and met parents who'd recently lost a baby, and the meet-up was full of emotion, but we felt able to say, look, we're all here, we're living interesting lives as survivors, don't stop thinking that it's a terrible loss. Try and make the person who's alive feel they've got a rich, good life to live, and that they're glad somehow that they had a twin, and make the most of who they are, because being a lone twin is being a special person.